It is Sports Prime Time on this Tuesday night. Thanks for hanging out here with us on the live streamed network. We've got the end of Titans offseason program to talk about, and specifically a headline that got basically all over the place. We didn't talk about it on the primetime show, but a lot of people did, and it came up today in Titans media availability. The idea that Treylon Burks and his practice efforts had come into question, according to one member of the local media. We'll get to that later on in the show. We will talk about the newcomer we have the biggest expectation, or the newcomer who we think is going to have the biggest impact on this year's team. And a gone viral video is how we will close out the proceedings, because that's what we do on a Tuesday night. Always good to see you guys. Always enjoy having you all around. Always enjoy when you invite more of your friends to come hang out here with us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on Twitch. See a lot of you on YouTube already. I'm sure more of you will trickle in on Facebook Live as we go. You guys know the drill. You share now to public. If you're hanging out on Twitter, retweet it. And if you're subscribed on YouTube, or if you haven't subscribed on YouTube, make sure you do that so you don't miss anytime we go live. So let's go ahead and get into this throughout the course of the evening, because Tyke Tolbert, the wide receiver coach, spoke about it. You're going to hear from Jaquan Jackson and Peter Skoronski, because I did sit-down interviews with both of them at the facility in the last couple of days, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. Welcome into A to Z Sports Prime Time from the Zen Sports Studios. I'm your host, Buck Rising. I'm proud, as always, to be presented to you by the aforementioned Zen Sports. Promo code ATOZTN. Plug it in. Get up to $100 on your no danger first wager in the Zen Sports app. Download it today. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Two Rivers in Mount Juliet, or online at tworiversford.com. The best car dealership, the best car buying experience can be found at Two Rivers Ford. The best workout is available for you at TrueMath Fitness. Your first workout is free as a Middle Tennessee resident. No workout ever recycled or repeated. Your first one free, as I mentioned, at TrueMathFitness.com. So a couple of, I would say about a week ago, Trevor Maddich, who is an ESPN commentator who does primarily college football, and he makes a weekly appearance with Jared Stillman over at 102.5. Now, I didn't hear this clip going around, but I had been informed of the comments earlier today, because Trevor Maddich slammed Treylon Burks and his practice effort. He went into detail on the idea that he would cut Treylon Burks then and there on the spot. And I don't have the audio for you, but I'm paraphrasing that he would cut Treylon Burks for his level of effort at a couple of practices that Trevor Maddich had attended at mandatory minicamp. Now, okay, that goes around. That makes the rounds. Derek Mason, who's also on that radio station, called the comments irresponsible. They never made it to me, because, to be completely honest with you, I'm not listening to local sports talk radio on a regular basis outside of the 3-hour radio show that I do. And when I'm consuming stuff, it's not usually, I'm at Titans practice every day. I'm talking to a lot of Titans people. I don't need to consume additional Titans media content, if that makes any sense. If I'm consuming content, it's probably, from the NFL Network or ESPN or the Athletic Football Show, places that I need to catch up on other stuff, because I've got the Titans thing pretty well under control around here. But I didn't hear Trevor Maddich's comments, and apparently they were made a week ago. So Maddich says this, and it lingers over the course of the last week, or apparently it lingers over the course of the last week. And Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach, spoke about it today. He brought it up on the heels of a question that Teron Davenport asked him, and specifically to the question of, well, is Treylon Burks, how is his effort, how is his attitude at this particular time, now that the mandatory minicamp is concluded and we are through the final day of the offseason team activities. This was the wide receiver coach, Tyke Tolbert.
Attitude's great. Effort's been good. One of the things that somebody said something about his effort in practice the other day, the one thing I would mention, that a lot of those guys come straight from special teams, and they're running like 100 yards up and down the field. And when they get to my period, my individual period, we have only 8 minutes. So what I tell them to do is they can tone it down a little bit, go through the route technique part of it, not so much speed, because after 8 minutes, we go back full speed, the routes are there with the quarterbacks. So some of that, I give him a little leeway because especially like on a kickoff team or a punt team as a gunner, he's taking more reps, probably twice as many reps as rookies are. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of a break when he gets to my particular area. As far as running full speed technique, I won't waver on that. But as far as going full speed in my drills, I don't have them do that on some days when they're doing a lot of running on special teams.
So some of that we're seeing was in fact based off a look toward that one.
Yeah, I tell them all. They say, "What's the speed?" I say, "I will go half speed this time." They say, "What's the speed?" I say, 3/4. Now sometimes we go full speed, but they always ask, "What's the speed?" And I tell them when they come from over there, I see they're running as gunners, and I'm seeing them running kickoff coverage, and some guys getting twice as many reps as some other guys. So just to give them like a little break when they get to my particular drill, I tell them the technique won't suffer, but just tone it down a little bit because you just come back from running all those, I don't know how many yards they run, but it's a lot over here in special teams. And then we're getting ready to run full speed again with the routes on air with the quarterback. So just in my period, sometimes I tell them to tone it down, half speed, 3/4 speed, that kind of thing.
So that's an explanation from Tyke Tolbert, the wide receivers coach. A to Z Sports Primetime is made possible by Zen Sports. Download the app, plug in the promo code ATOZTN, get up to $100 on your no danger first wager. Zensports.com for more information. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Must be 21 plus and in Tennessee to bet. So that's Tyke Tolbert speaking on the idea that Treylon Burks' effort should be called into question. John Gonzalez says, let's see what Burks does with full contact. Sensei Zoe says, Burks will be ready for the moment. Y'all stay on that side when he shines. That's an interesting kind of position, right? Because I'll be the first to admit it. I have zero expectations for Treylon Burks. He is not a consistent enough player, even when he is healthy and available, to make me think that he should be trusted to any kind of degree. Now, can he disprove that narrative? Can they build out a package of plays or personnel groupings with Treylon Burks and getting the ball in Treylon Burks' hand because they turn him into a returner with the new kick return rules? Honest to God, if Treylon Burks turns into like next-gen Cordero Patterson, I don't think that's the worst thing in the world. Does he have to do it here? But no, but Cordell Patterson is a former first-round pick who's still in the NFL getting jobs on a regular basis because they found the right usage for him. So when I consider the Treylon Burks proposition, I'm not on a side that he sucks permanently or a side that says that he's going to turn into something great. I talked about this earlier in the year, and it sounds like a bit of a personal attack, but my position is I don't want to have to think about Treylon Burks at all at this point. I want to go through a football Sunday without having to wonder whether Treylon Burks is going to drop a wide open pass after he gets behind a secondary. I know that the Titans have much more reliable options than Treylon Burks right now on the field, ready to go, in DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Tyler Boyd. I think that if Treylon Burks does anything this year, I would like for it to be a pleasant surprise, but I'm not counting on him for anything at this point. His effort and his finish at practice, if the coach says they're good with it, okay, we'll see what happens. And, do I care that Trevor Maddich says that he would cut him for effort issues because of a couple of drills? And you listen, Trevor played in the league. Trevor played at a high level in college football. I'm not going to act like I have more football knowledge with me than Trevor Maddich does. That's not what I'm trying to dispute at all. But just the degree that he took it to, the idea that he would cut him on the spot for the level of effort in a mandatory minicamp practice is kind of wild to me. That shit doesn't fly with today's players. Not like you can't have like putting your foot down moments and degrees of responsibility, a pecking order, a chain of command, or any of that. But like when I hear Trevor Maddich say that, all I hear is, oh, that's just an out of touch old school football person commenting on the way that a new or next gen coaching staff is having their players operate. And if the player is doing what he's coached to do, then shouldn't your issue then be with the coaching staff as opposed to making it about the player? I don't know Trevor Maddich personally. I know that he has been in this business far longer than I. And again, his football resume is considerably better than mine is. I do not dispute that at all. I believe he's still doing commentary on college football games for ESPN on television. I know that he does a weekly hit with Jared, and I know he lives in Nashville because I used to work at 102.5, and I remember Trevor being on the station even then. That was damn near, that was almost 9 years ago at this point. But when I hear it, and I don't know how Trevor would take this, but I hear out of touch. That's all that strikes me as, even as I understand that Treylon Burks needs to show max effort and max finish on as many reps as humanly possible. And probably to Trevor's point, and I think I understand the point that Trevor's trying to get across, is that even if the coach tells you to go half speed, you should probably go 100 miles an hour anyway, because Treylon Burks has been in one offseason usurped. Can he earn this back? Can he have a future on this roster? Absolutely. DeAndre Hopkins on an expiring contract. Tyler Boyd's deal is for only 1 year, but it's pretty crazy that you would come down so harshly after hearing the wide receiver comments. Again, this is Tyke Tolbert explaining to you and explaining to whomever would care to listen how he coaches the players to go through these drills. If you want to call it covering, you can. If you want to call it an explanation, you can. But we asked the wide receiver coach the question, and the wide receiver coach gave an answer.
Attitude's great. Effort's been good. One of the things that somebody said something about his effort in practice the other day. The one thing I would mention that a lot of those guys come straight from special teams, and they're running like 100 yards up and down the field. And when they get to my individual period, we have only 8 minutes. So what I tell them to do is they can tone it down a little bit, go through the route technique part of it, not so much speed, because after 8 minutes, we go back full speed, the routes are there with the quarterbacks. So some of that, I give him a little leeway, because especially like on a kickoff team or a punt team as a gunner, he's taking more reps, probably twice as many reps as rookies are. So I'm trying to give him a little bit of a break when he gets to my particular area. As far as running full speed technique, I won't waver on that. But as far as going full speed in my drills, I don't have them do that on some days when they're doing a lot of running on special teams.
So some of that was seen was in fact based off a look toward that one.
Yeah, I tell them all. They say, "What's the speed?" I say, "I will go half speed this time." They say, "What's the speed?" I say, 3/4. Now sometimes we go full speed, but they always ask, "What's the speed?" And I tell them when they come from over there, I see they're running as gunners, and I'm seeing they're running kickoff coverage, and some guys getting twice as many reps as some other guys. So just to give them like a little break when they get to my particular drill, I tell them the technique won't suffer, but just tone it down a little bit, because you just come back from running all those, I don't know how many yards they run, but it's a lot over here in special teams. And then we're getting ready to run full speed again with the routes on air with the quarterback. So just in my period, sometimes I tell them to tone it down, half speed, 3/4 speed, that kind of thing.
So again, that's the wide receivers coach, Tyke Tolbert, telling you how he coaches the wide receivers, and that was just Treylon Burks being, doing what he's being told to do. A to Z Sports Primetime is presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com. They always go above and beyond to put you in position to succeed, to put you in the driver's seat to succeed, to make the car buying process fast, easy, and fun, especially right now where they are giving you $8,000 off your 2024 Ford Expedition, an Expedition month only at Two Rivers Ford in Mount Juliet or online at tworiversford.com, just 7 miles east of Nashville International Airport. All right, so from Treylon Burks to newcomers, which newcomer do you think is going to make the biggest impact in year one? This could be a player that was traded for. There's only a couple of players that you traded for in L'Jarius Sneed and Leroy Watson, but two of those players, certainly one of those players is already a starter. The other one could be very well a starter by the time week one rolls around for no other reason than they don't have another competent body to play right tackle. Could be a free agent, Lloyd Cushenberry, of course, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard. Sebastian Joseph Day, right? There's all number of players that you could go with that this team signed in free agency that are going to be called upon to make contributions. Then the draft class, J.C. Latham, Devondre Sweat is a much bigger question mark, but I think there is still some underlying optimism about, all right, so he's missed the offseason program. Not ideal for the big fella to miss the offseason program, especially if it's going to impact his conditioning at all, especially when all we talked about after the draft was him having big man problems at 366 pounds. Again, I don't know this for a fact, so it would be a little bit of reckless speculation on my part, but I am under the impression that he was more than 366 pounds when he was reportedly 366 pounds or listed as 366. And so the idea that all he had to do was lose 11 pounds to become a 355 and a Hall of Famer, like he told us on the Friday night that he was drafted, I have a little bit of a side eye about. So the whole Devondre Sweat experience to me, to date, less than ideal. If you had to nitpick, that's probably the biggest nit that you would pick of anything that's gone on in the Titans offseason program to date. Because it's, he needs to be a day one starter. And if he doesn't pan out in the way that they have poured all this effort and resource and vetting in the pre-draft process and turned down trades on draft night that would have yielded significant capital to better improve this roster, they've got a lot riding as a first-year coach and GM tandem on Devondre Sweat. And if he doesn't pan out, we're going to crush him, and they're absolutely going to deserve it. So Sweat is kind of the outlier in all of this because for the most part, all of the newcomers are going to play, right? So there's going to be a ton of guys who are going to make an instant impact right away. But who do you think is going to make the most instant impact? Bill Callahan says MB, which is absolutely the correct answer. Who's the most important offseason acquisition, player, coach, equipment, whatever. He is the most important thing that the Titans have added in the offseason. Jonathan Caverly says the weirdest part of the offseason is discussing the weight of people. Well, no, it's not weird at all. These are professional athletes. Your body, your conditioning, your health, all these different things are factored in. I understand that it feels a little bit like, athletes are already treated as kind of commodities instead of people. And, I have my issues about the draft process being a bit like a beauty pageant and a livestock show, because I think there's some coded language and messaging and all of that is less than favorable. But that's, that's the way that the NFL has been for 150 years. Doesn't mean that it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It just means that it's the way that business is done. But no, it's not weird at all to be talking about the offseason weight of people if the weight directly impacts how you perform. If you can't get on the field because you're eating yourself out of the league, it's a problem. I want to know how much you weigh. If you're Jeff Simmons and you tell us, Jeff dealing with ankle issues the past couple of years, right? He had it, seriously injured in 2022 in the Chiefs game, and then missed a little time last year dealing with the ankle injury. And by the way, has not been out there and available for the offseason program. Do I think it's a big problem? No. Is it something to pay attention to? Yes. And you know what else is something to pay attention to? Hey, Jeff, how much do you weigh if you're dealing with these ankle issues? Have you adjusted your diet at all to account for maybe you would prefer to play at a different weight? Maybe your joints are getting to a point as you get older in your career. He's been in the league for a handful of years now. He's dealt with a fair amount of injuries, as any football player does. You have to change how your body adapts, how your body recovers, and do the things that are appropriate to maximize the abilities of your body. Tom Brady is a great example. So, of course, it's not a weird part of the offseason to talk about the weight, the height, the hand size of players when it is directly correlated to their performance. Can we not just discuss their performance and leave weight out of it? Did you not have a 260-pound center that all you could do last year is talk to me about how little he was and how light he was in the ass? Of course we can. If we're talking about trench players, I just don't understand how that doesn't compute. If we're talking about guys who get in a car wreck on every play, whose task on every down is some level of real estate acquisition and doing it in a violent fashion, how in the hell would we not talk about how much each of those physical bodies weighs, how much they bench, how much they squat, how much their strength, power, speed, all of these things correlate to how they perform. Of course we're going to talk about their weight. I mean, they don't seem to be as sensitive about us talking about their weight as you do, because they understand this is a necessary thing. They're being poked and prodded and all kinds of other stuff throughout the course of the pre-draft process. Of course they understand why we're asking questions about their weight. Of course I understand why T'Vondre Sweat doesn't want to answer questions about his weight. He's the only player in the history of the Senior Bowl to not want to step on the scale because he was probably too damn heavy. So if you're asking me why his weight is a talking point, because the thing that most directly correlates to the question of T'Vondre Sweat, is he a 3-down player like they need him to be, or is he actually only going to be, is he going to be Tier Tart, the best 2-down player in football, but on that 3rd down, you got to get him off the field? Then hell yes, I want to know everything about his weight, or as much as humanly possible, because it impacts and correlates directly to their performance. Anyway, so newcomers who are going to make an impact in year one. Best offseason acquisition, which is a different game. That's not the game that we're playing right now, Eddie, but the newcomer who's going to have the most instant impact on year one. Damon says, tell Amy to stop feeding the team chips and candy. I don't think that's exactly what they are feeding them in the I know the dietitian a little bit. I can't speak to exactly the plans that she's got all of the individual players on, but I can tell you that chips and candy are probably not a big portion of the dietary chart or whatever it is. That do we still do the food pyramid? Is the food pyramid still something that's taught in schools, or is that just, is that just thrown out the window? Is that something that's still hovering about, or there's still, I don't even remember how many different types of foods were in the food pyramid at this point in time, so I would be the wrong person to speak on it. But yeah, I haven't thought about the food pyramid in a long time. Anyway, so newcomers who are going to make an impact. I could make the argument for a great many players, but I'm going to make the best argument for J.C. Latham.
As it relates to J.C., obviously, who you're going to work with primarily, work alongside with, and Lloyd, just I guess how the benefit of the two of them, one who's new to the NFL, obviously, but high-level athlete, obviously a former first-round pick like yourself, and then Lloyd, who was a full, I think he started for his entire rookie season and has been a full-time starter since then, and the invaluable nature of that knowledge, having center like that to play alongside.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, center is such a cerebral position in a lot of ways, especially in this offense. So it's really good to have someone who's got a lot of experience under their belt and is also just like a really smart, cerebral guy with a really good demeanor. And that's Lloyd. And I think we're lucky to have someone like that in the middle. So yeah, it's a huge help to me as a guard. I think you rely so much on center communication. And I think it'll be a huge help to JC too, because, it goes down the line. So, it's kind of an anchor there in terms of not just physically, but mentally.
All right, so that's a 2-for-1. That's a part of the sit-down interview that I did. I guess that was last week with Peter Skoronsky. We did a new one today with Jaquan Jackson that I think you guys will enjoy. Jaquan was really, really good, and I appreciate all of their time. We did Weaver, we did Skoronsky, and we did Jaquan Jackson today. I had a really good interview with Tony Pollard, and I screwed up the audio, which I'm still very upset at myself about, because I think you guys would have enjoyed it, but still, we don't have to cry over spilled milk. We'll just have to try and do better next time. Anyway, so Peter Skoronsky talking there about both J.C. Latham and Lloyd Cushenberry, who are both new additions and who are both going to have some level of impact. Now, I think you could argue that Cushenberry will probably have the greater impact because he's the only player on the offense that's going to touch the ball on every snap the way that the quarterback does. So him being a full-time starter since his rookie season, him being a more conventional type of center. He's not overwhelmingly big to see him. I don't think that he's much taller, for instance, than Aaron Brewer was, but he is definitely every bit of 330 pounds, and Aaron Brewer was closer to 260, 270 at various points in his NFL career here. So I think that there will be a noticeable difference in what Cushenberry brings. I think that Latham is equally as good an argument, because the left tackle, as long as he's healthy and available, he's going to be out there playing left tackle, and doesn't seem to be any hiccups in his progression thus far. I do have another submission, and it's another rookie that we're going to get to here in just a second, right after I remind you that the Primetime program is presented by TrueMap Fitness in the Gulch. Go to TrueMapFitness.com. Your first workout is free. As a Middle Tennessee resident, no workout is ever recycled or repeated, with the best coaching staff, the best trainers, the best facility conveniently located in downtown Nashville, just over there in the Gulch. TrueMapFitness.com. Your first workout is free. Tell Worth Campbell that you're a Titans fan, and he'll probably, I don't know. I don't know if you'll get a better workout out of it. I don't know if you'll get a harder workout out of it, but you'll have somebody to commiserate with about your football team because Worth is a long-suffering Titans fan. Anyway, so if I had to pick a second nominee, I could go in a bunch of different directions. I'm gonna hold my water on Snead here for a little bit because L'Jarius Sneed should, in theory, make a huge impact. But you know, he has participated in 2 of the 3 minicamp practices, but participated is probably a really strong word. He was out there for walkthroughs, is basically what it is, and he hasn't done 7-on-7 stuff. And they're managing his knee situation, and that's fine. Whatever, same deal as Kansas City. The only time that it'll matter to you, me, and everybody else is if, for whatever reason, he's unavailable to play, and the management of the knee situation becomes a larger talking point. So I'm going to leave L'Jarius Sneed out of this conversation for the moment. I am going to bring up Jaquan Jackson, the rookie wide receiver out of Tulane, who has dual ability, not just as a receiver, but also in the return game as well.
You got one for me before we wrap this one up? Give you the opportunity to turn the mic over. You seem like you got a little broadcasting in you.
Oh, nah. What question you have for me? You know, since that you want to know that's beyond football.
Beyond football. Well, you know, for me, it's the idea of understanding what it's like coming up in the New Orleans area, like that you just described. The idea of calling your dad and needing or feeling the need to get a hotel room before you're getting ready to have the most important job interview essentially of your life, and feeling that sense that you have to have that level of safety around you. That's, I'll be honest with you, Jaquan, that's not something that I've ever experienced in my life, but I know there's a lot of people who come from all kinds of different circumstances that can identify that. And so for me, it's just trying to get to know you guys not just on a personal level, but also the foundation of where you all come from, to help me understand you guys as we continue to cover your career and ultimately tell your stories here as a Tennessee Titan. So, you know, I think the one non-football thing that I was looking for, you answered really well there. Cause just to imagine a situation like that in my head, I don't even, you know, that doesn't even compute to me, you know?
Yeah. It's dangerous. Just talking to one of the teammates from Tulane the other day, they said, man, they got a lot of like police tasks in New Orleans now, because you know the Super Bowl in New Orleans.
Yeah, I'll be there.
They're trying to clear the streets and the gun violence and all the robbing, and try to minimize it, because you know, once they try to have the best it can be in New Orleans, you know, like, because once you have stuff going bad, and they probably won't have another Super Bowl in New Orleans, so you got to make sure everything's right, because you know, like regular season in New Orleans game, you get your windows broken, your car broken into, you get robbed, so you just try to minimize that. But just growing up there, you know, it just had a lot, the hurricane, and just being in New Orleans. I remember when my freshman year, first time, like me being in a flood, other than in 2005, the Hurricane Katrina.
Yeah.
The water is to my chest on a regular day. Like on a regular day, you're
You're
just
just going through
like,
day-to-day life like that. That's unbelievable, man.
So that's a part of the interview with Jaquan Jackson. We went for about 15 minutes. It was really, really good stuff. I think you guys are going to get to enjoy getting to know him, and you'll hear that full interview on the radio show on Friday is when we're going to air that. I'm actually not going to be on the show on Friday. I'm going to be flying to Long Beach, California for Ron Slay's wedding, but Lucas is going to play that interview, so you get a little bit of me on the show, but you know, it's balanced out with Jaquan Jackson carrying me for the duration of that interview. So I think that both of those players, all 3 of those players, are going to have some level of impact. And here's the thing. The Titans had enough holes all over the place, as we've talked about many, many times through, that everybody that they've brought in is basically going to be, if not a starter, a regular contributor, right? Snead, Awuzie, starters. Sebastian Joseph Day, probably going to be a starter. J.C. Latham, probably going to start. Cedric Gray, probably going to start. The offensive line help that they've brought in, Sadiq Charles, at least in training camp, sounds like he's going to be the right guard to start with. And for all I know, Leroy Watson is going to be the starting right tackle, because NPF hasn't been able to get out there on the field yet. Calvin Ridley. There are so many names that you go through, all these offseason acquisitions who are going to be on the field right away because Tennessee had so many different holes to fill. So with all of that, I think there's a bunch of different newcomers who are going to have an impact. I think that you could probably name any one of them and have a pretty spot on response or spot on answer there. Gone Viral Video is how we'll wrap up. What's the best thing you saw on the internet this week? Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is how you let your comments be heard or let your comments be read. What's the best thing you saw on the internet through the first couple of days of this week? While you tell me, I will tell you that you don't sell without the intel. And the intel only is able to be acquired at GaryAshton.com. The official real estate agent of the Nashville Predators is the Ashton Real Estate Group of RE/MAX Advantage, so don't sell without the intel. Let's see. The best thing that I saw on the internet this weekend is a video from Sisters, Oregon. Apparently, the Sisters Rodeo is an annual tradition. This was the 84th Sisters, Oregon Rodeo. And while they are singing, I believe it's the Star-Spangled Banner in the midst of this rodeo, while a bull is making its way around, I mean, what do they call it? The arena, the pen, whatever. Just keep your eye on the bull and how this thing makes itself known to the crowd.
I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend
It's the oh shit in the background. Let's watch it again, shall we, please?
I know I'm free, and I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I gladly stand up next to you and defend
Don't take the camera down, sir. Don't yell, oh shit, and then don't let me see what's going on. Apparently 3 people were injured. Nobody died, and the bull was wrangled relatively quickly. But yes, that's the best thing I saw on the internet this week. I'm perpetually team bull. God knows what's happened to that bull in the midst of being wrangled and roped and ridden and all these other things. So if he wants to take a leap and take it out on the crowd a little bit, I'm perpetually team bull. Absolutely. That was the best thing that I saw on the internet this week. Gone viral. We always have some good submissions to pull from. Brad Ford says, do we need to worry about Levis from what you've seen thus far? Buck was on a walk with the family, so I missed much of this show. Well, lucky for you, Brad, you can watch the entirety of the replay, and we'll have plenty of time to talk about Will Levis because there are 7 straight weeks now with no football. So if you want to talk about concerns for Will Levis, we'll do it another night because that is going to do it tonight on the primetime show. We appreciate you guys hanging out. Radio show tomorrow. Plaxico Burress is going to be on the radio show tomorrow at 11 a.m. He had a lot of thoughts about the Titans' new wide receiver core, and he's, of course, doing work for Fox Sports now. So Plaxico Burress will be on with us. We'll look forward to having you guys from 10 to 1 on 104.5 The Zone. Have a great rest of your evening, and I will see you then. Go home!